Stop number 2 on our Colombian road trip led us to the storied city of Medellin, La Ciudad de la Eterna Primavera, which translates to the city of eternal spring, and once we got there, it was easy to understand why. In the middle of a lush river valley surrounded by jungle-covered mountain slopes and shrouded in rainy mists, giving way to fresh blue skies almost every day, Medellin for us was one of the most interesting cities we stayed in and hosts a plethora of things to do and see. Medellin is also considered one of the most inspiring circumstances for Latin American cities, with its complicated history of cartels, anti-government violence, and insane historical events related to the wars on drugs. But we want to focus on what we found to be some of the most amazing things happening in Medellin, and how much we learned about the city's civil projects and massive progress in public transportation that's changing the lives, economy, and situation for millions of not only citizens of Medellin, but the people of Colombia as well. Colombia is a country with some of the highest rates of internal displacement in the world, meaning more people were migrating from rural areas that were forced out by violence, zero economic opportunity, searching for a better future. In helping us understand, it was necessary to understand a little bit of the city's history too. This is Medellin in 1950. This is it in the year 2000. Even now, 20 more years on, a massive explosion of urbanization and exponential increase in population created some of the city's huge challenges, but the ways they are solving them have been considered some of the most cutting edge and leading examples, not only for all of Latin America, but the world as well. This is Sebastián. Sebastián gave us an incredible tour of the city, and you can find his info here. Without stealing too much of his thunder, the info and dedication of his tour were awesome and very professional. His insights as a local and growing up in the area gave us an incredible view into the complex story of Medellin and Colombia. The tour is definitely worth doing, and you can find his info here, and we'll leave it in the descriptions too. The main projects we want to focus on get to the core of how Medellin is working hard to harness the complicated problems of socioeconomic inequality, geography, public access, and progress toward creating pathways for millions of Colombians to increase their standard of living. How did they address this? One fascinating way is through public transportation, and we're going to try and explain a little bit how. This is Medellin's vast cable car system. A series of interconnected gondolas really very similar to the types you might see at a ski resort of a mountain village. They hold sometimes up to 12 people and have hundreds of cars on tower lines stretching almost every direction within the rolling mountainous cityscape, now covered in the more organic buildings, growing every day. With these more organic type of buildings beginning to cover the hillsides and steep slopes of the valley as thousands flock to urban areas, it creates problems with road access, imperfect planning, zoning, housing, and time. What would once take hours navigating hundreds of steep, unorganized steps to get to the city center now can take around 30 minutes and usually only need one transfer. It may seem simple, but creating a sense of connectivity in a city so diverse socially and economically was paramount to enabling the economic growth of Medellin, paving the way for a more united, accessible, and opportunity-driven circumstance, allowing the people more chances to increase their standard of living. It's even helped in bringing along enough resources for one of the first ever libraries in a low-income area, and public universities as well. This connectivity has enabled some groundbreaking types of lower-income area rejuvenation, and perhaps none exemplify it better than a barrio called Comuna 13. Comuna 13 now is one of the most interesting of all of Medellin's barrios, with vibrant colors, street performers, vendors, and food stalls. Comuna 13 likely represents in one neighborhood the massive changes happening in the city. A complete urban development plan, re-injecting investment into a low-income area that was once the site of terrible tragedies. Comuna 13, or Comuna 13, is the site of a multi-month military operation involving hundreds of civilians, thousands of soldiers, and street battles lasting days that left many dead and hundreds injured, known as Operation Orion. The operation sought to end the presence of groups and urban militias, but it became a complicated story of violence, disappearances, arbitrary detentions, and even torture. The operation has since been questioned by the civilian victims that left a large number of disappeared and extrajudicial executions. More than 1,000 soldiers, policemen, and paramilitary groups, along with armed helicopters, in their attempts to violently eliminate left-wing urban militias, the government had put thousands in crossfire. Controversy continued to plague the operation as locals began to relay stories of how hundreds of residents had been detained but never tried, and many citizens were disappeared by paramilitary forces. Immediately following the October operation of 2002, the military offensive was criticized heavily because it was carried out in one of the most densely populated areas of Medellin. While the government had viewed it as a victory, locals were less accepting. Many felt that one armed group had simply been replaced with another, and it had also forced further displacement of almost 4,000 people out of the Comuna. Comuna 13 became representational of the problems existing in the poorer areas, along with cartel and gang violence, with a point in the city's history with as many as 20 gangs battling for control in turf wars. Operation Orion became a breaking point. Because of such violence and such unified tragic circumstances, communities, the government, and NGOs began working together in order to create a pilot project for rejuvenating the area. Implemented by the then mayor of Medellin, showcasing specifically a series of escalators giving access to the multiple levels of the barrio. This would be one of the first times any significant amount of investment was made into low-income areas, giving the patchwork of artists, performers, restaurants, vendors, and small businesses a space, and allowing for tourism to safely access the area and bring money in. Comuna 13 was transformed over the years to what is now an awesome slice of Colombian culture, a conjunction of the eclectic style brought by these artists, street performers, and small businesses, really showcasing the beautiful culture of Colombia. With such a complicated history, a place like Comuna 13, it was amazing just to see how much progress has been made, but how much also still lies ahead. The complicated story and violent past of a city devastated by tragedy. For us, it was also inspiring, seeing now in the same neighborhood, in the exact same place, where such tragedy unfolded. A vibrant community, rising up, dancing, singing, inspiring art, culture, and change. A fascinating look into how urban rejuvenation really can work, and unique projects like public transportation and urban acupuncture can mean the difference for leading to major changes for millions of people. A true testament to the resilient spirit of Colombians and Latin America as well. The views from the upper levels were also amazing, and grabbing a drink at the top, enjoying the breeze, we finally finished our day tour with Sebastián, said our goodbyes, hopped in a taxi back to El Poblado where we were staying, found some great Japanese ramen infusion, and prepped for the next stop on our Colombian road trip. But before we get too far, we also loved a few other places in Medellin. The Plaza de Botero, a renowned artist with a style for the rotundly recognizable sculptures. Parque Arví, a massive ecological park with trails, orchid tours, and just outside the city, about a 40-minute cable car ride. Pergamino was an awesome internet cafe, frequented by digital nomads and people working remotely from all over the world. Medellin will always be a special place for us, and it's the type of city you can go to again and again and always find something new or different to see or do. You'll more than likely need to fly through it as it is, and it's a great stopover on your way to just about anywhere in Colombia. But for us, it was time to pack up our rental car and once again head out on our Colombian road trip to our next destination, Valle de Cocora.